Hello, this is Robert Messina, and I'm here to talk about the signs that you should be able to see when the beginning of the last 7 years happens. It is a very important topic. That's why I'm here. Before I start, I want to distinguish between the way to know that you're talking about the first half and the way to know that you're talking about the second half. Because in the middle of the 7 years, there's the abomination that causes desolate, and that is a complete divide in what's going on. There's the beast that rules in the first 42 months, and there's the false prophet beast that rules in the times, and dividing of times. So those are the 42 months, which is 1,260 days. Okay? So those are the two phrases that are used to help you distinguish what half you're talking about. And I'll show it to you in the verses as to why I can say that for sure. By the way, 42 months and 1,260 days are the same. The exact half is 1,290 days. If you multiply that times 2, you get 7 years. So let's look at the one that uses the 1,290 days, which is 1 month more. There's an extra month. After because the beast only rules for 42 months, and then there's an extra month. I believe that's when the abomination of desolation happens. And the verse is actually going to say that here. Daniel 12:11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. Now, sacrifice is in italics. The word sacrifice is not there. You have to know that. Because it's talking about a time like now in today's time, when there is no daily, there's no temple to make a sacrifice in, and the daily things that's happening is praying at the Wailing Wall, or the Temple Mount, as they call it, Har Bait, the Temple Mount. From the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Okay? So there is the first half. And it has to be the first half, because if the abomination is set up in the middle, taking away the daily has to start it. So that's the first sign for you people. Wow, when that happens, it's the beginning. You have the phrase 1,260 days, which is when the beast rules. That's number one. Number two, when the sanctuary is trampled upon. That's in Revelation 11. And it's also when, and the third outstanding sign to see will be the two witnesses. And we'll talk more about that later too. All right, so let's go to Daniel 12:7. This is where it's telling you that times the dividing of times is the end, the second half of the week. Okay? And Daniel 12:7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that lives forever and ever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So you see the scattering of the holy people, the power of the holy people, that's us. We are going to be tried. We have to pass a couple of tests. We might be sacrificed, we might be killed, but that's what it is. Revelation 12, both phrases are used. that's just a confirmation that there's the first half, and Revelation 12:6 is spoken first. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God. Now, the woman represents sort of like Sarah. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,260 days, 260 days. So you see, that's the first half again. And the second half is mentioned later down in verse 14. And to the woman were given two wings of a great eagle. It sounds to me like a passenger jet. That she might fly into the wilderness, into her place. Now her place is in Israel, where she is nourished for a time, times, and a half a time. So she's going to be from the face of the serpent. So this is telling you that Israel is not going to get hurt that much as the rest of the world. So at least she's fed and cared for that amount of time. But Israel is going to get hit. I think that's going to be at the very end in the sixth trumpet. You also get that phrase, times dividing of times, in Daniel 7:27 and Daniel 12:7. It's the time when, like I said, the second beast is going to have power over everybody. I think the first beast will still be alive. The first beast is still going to be there, but the Antichrist, the man who is the mouthpiece of that beast, is not going to be there. But we are going to talk about who that man is, and that's going to be one of the things to look for. Let's go to Matthew 24, 4-5. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So in other words, right in the beginning, you're going to be getting Antichrist that deceives people. And that's talking about, I think that's in the same line of reasoning that Paul talks about the falling away, the apostasy. Now, this is something that's going to happen right at the beginning, but it's going to be hard to see because, a falling away in your faith in Jesus and looking up to the Antichrist, which is this is talking about here, that's not going to be that easy to see because you don't know you can't see their hearts, you don't know. But it is a first thing that happens. In fact, it happens before the mystery of iniquity does already work. So right now, in these days, right now, the spirit of Antichrist is here, and people are getting deceived into the way the Antichrist wants them to follow. That's happening now. So that's why it's not easy to distinguish when exactly it begins. But there are things that have to happen. And those are things that you can see, especially the taking away of the daily. Because that's going to start with a covenant, and we'll talk about that covenant later. Okay, let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2, 1-3. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So he's going all the way towards the middle, where you're starting to see that the son of perdition, the Antichrist, and the beast that he is the mouthpiece for, that's something you're not going to see right in the beginning, but you will see the United Nations come into very strong power. Who can war against the beast? 2 Thessalonians 2:7. For the mystery of iniquity does already work. See, that's what I just quoted just before. Only he who now lets will let until he be taken out of the way. A lot of people look at that and they say, well, it's the Holy Spirit that's permitting, and now that is now permitting and will be taken out of the way. And because it says because he's taken out of the way, they say he goes up back up into heaven and sits with the Father and Jesus, who are there now. Okay, they add words. They have to add words there, and I'm not going to get into that right now. I believe Jesus comes back at the sound of the last trump, and we are raised and we are resurrected at that time, and that's the first resurrection, and that much be said. But when he who lets is taken out of the way, that will begin the 42-month reign of the beast. Okay, the Antichrist beast. So that's why it's very significant. Okay, 2 Thessalonians 2:10 through 12. Now, okay, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, and that all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So you see, this is that apostasy defined a little bit more. There's a strong God Himself is sending over the world a strong delusion, and the Antichrist is going to be that strong delusion, and they're going to believe that man and that power, and they're going to, and they worship the dragon, and they worship the beast, and they worship the image of the beast. So that's the strong delusion, getting everybody to not only follow and obey and take commands from, also worshiping. Now, why he's doing that is right before it. It's said right before it. It says, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So they were offered it, and they didn't want it, or they fell away from it. Okay, now let's go to something that we're going to be able to see with our eyes, and that will be the explained in Daniel 9, verse 27, but the verse right above that, verse 26, is almost a mirror of it, and it does give a little bit more information to start with. So let's start there. Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks. Now this is the last piece of the 70 weeks that Daniel is talking about. Daniel has 70 weeks from the 7 weeks from the command to rebuild the city to Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Okay? To me, that's 409. That's 7 70s, 490 years. Okay? Then there's an extra 40 years, and then 62 weeks. 62 weeks, which is the threescore and 2 weeks that he's saying here. After the threescore and 2 weeks, which is 62 months, 62 weeks of months, from the day of his birth, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And that's the day he goes back into heaven. He goes up into the clouds. All right? So just a little background. And there's one more week, by the way. So far it's only 69 weeks that have transpired. We still have one more week to come, and I'm expecting that to be right the week of vials of wrath. There's 7 vials of wrath after the 7th trumpet, which I believe when Jesus comes back at that time, and we resurrect at that time, we go through the millennium at that time, we are protected, we are not going to get the vials of wrath, and God is good. Okay. Messiah shall be cut off, not for himself, and the people of the prince. Now, this is now talking about the bad guy, all right? The bad prince, the Antichrist guy who's going to come. The people of the prince, not he himself. He is not going to do it himself, but his people shall come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. All right? And he might not be included in that because he might be dead, because I think he dies in the middle of the 7 weeks, the 7 years. And then he says, and at the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. So you see the word end. You see the end with a flood, the end of the war, desolations are determined. Okay? And that's going to be repeated in 927. And he, now that's the bad guy again, shall confirm. He doesn't make a covenant. He confirms a covenant. He strengthens a covenant that already exists with many. Many in Hebrew is rabin. Okay? And I do think this is the covenant that Yitzhak Rabin made with Yasser Arafat back in 1993. They didn't make it for 7 years, but it lasted in effect. It was in effect for 7 years. Strongly in effect for exactly 7 Hebrew years. So his name is actually in there. It's a covenant made with many, and it's exactly 7 Hebrew years, and it's a devastating covenant. It's the Oslo Accord. That covenant is now going to be referred to. It's going to be confirmed. It's going to be strengthened. Okay? So that's the first sign you're going to see, and it's probably going to come from United Nations. The Oslo Accord is based on 2 United Nations resolutions. So the way that the first covenant made with many for 1 week that needs to be confirmed right now, the way that one was in the news, and it was celebrated as a peace covenant, so is the confirming of that covenant to reinforce it, to have it lawful again. So is that little ceremony going to be in the news. So you will hear about it. This is a very big sign that covenant is confirmed. All right? It's called the Oslo Accords. It divides the land. It gives up sovereignty to the enemy, to Palestinians, that their map has no Israel. That's who they're going to give sovereignty to. Their enemies that are uh, they're bad. Let's put it that way. So now, so that there actually are 2 weeks mentioned in this one verse 27, and that's what makes it very confusing. But there's a covenant that's confirmed that already exists, and there's a new week starting because of what he's doing. Because when he does confirm that, he's beginning the last 7 years. And I'll read you the verse that says that. In the midst of the week, now this is 9:27 again, and in the midst of the week, now underline that word midst, because that word midst is really describing the week, that it's a week that is cut in half. It's describing the week that is, that word midst is not like, I look at it like, and in the divided, now he's pointing to the divided week of the last 7 years. And in that divided week, he's going to cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. All right, so I'll stop there. The sacrifice. This is the first time Daniel. We're going to see how Daniel always uses the word daily. He always uses the word daily, and the reason and sacrifice is always in italics right next to the word daily, as if it was the daily sacrifice. But he doesn't say the word sacrifice except for here. And that's because, I believe that's because, right now, Jews don't have a temple to make sacrifices in, like the law instructs them to. They have a wailing wall. They have the Temple Mount. They have the Har Bayit. And that is where a daily happens every day, a daily praying, a daily oblation, you could say, and because Daniel was in his oblation when the angel came to answer his prayer. He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Now, I think, it doesn't say daily, by the way. This is the one time he doesn't say daily. He doesn't say it's a daily sacrifice. He says he has caused the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And that word for sacrifice that he uses is not prayer. It's actually you cutting the animal. You're killing the animal. And you're making it bleed. It's a blood sacrifice. He's going to cause that to cease. That's why it's going to be earmarked as a peace treaty. Because the sacrifice that's going to stop, I think, is going to be the suicide bombings, which are still going on. It is still a part of their, an abnormal part of their religion. And he makes the oblation. He stops the praying on the wall. Do you know that the United Nations passed, we're not going to call it, they changed the name of the Temple Mount? They changed it to Al-Haram Al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary. And for the overspreading of abominations, remember that Jesus said, when you see the abomination as spoken by Daniel the prophet, this is one of the times that he's talking about, that it's mentioned. It's mentioned a couple other times. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. It is the word desolate. Even until the consummation. That means that's the end. The very end even until the consummation. He is beginning the end of the 7 years that are left. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. See the word desolate? The word was desolations in the verse before. Now he says, make it desolate, even until the consummation. That's really the end. And shall pour it upon the desolate. Desolate, desolate, desolate. I guess it's the abomination of desolation. Okay, let's go to 8. 11. Yea, he, the bad guy, the man, Antichrist the man, magnified himself, even to the prince of the host, the good guy, prince of the host of his people. And by him, the bad guy, the daily sacrifice in italics was taken away. And the place of his sanctuary, the good guy's sanctuary, was cast down. Here we have the place of worship was cast down. There may be a physical temple that is being built at this time. In other words, they take away the daily praying, but they're going to add a temple for them to, I don't know. That might happen. It might be a temple set up because this guy magnifies himself in the holy place. And his image is placed in a holy place. The image that everybody has to worship. Otherwise, they'll get killed. They kill them. You don't worship it, you get killed. That's one of the tests we're going to have to go through. That's not the... This is about the things you see in the very beginning. So I'm going to keep it like that. I tried to keep it like that. 12. Daily is mentioned in 3 verses right in a row. Daily without the word sacrifice. 3 verses right in a row. So it's a big thing to look for. Taking away that daily. When you see that, when you see that covenant be confirmed, when you see all the hosts and splendor and grandeur about the bad guy who is posing as a good guy, posing as a peacemaker, and when you see all of this whole thing here coming out, and they stop the daily praying, I'm going to say, I'll put the word in. When they stop that daily praying and they take it away from them and they can't have it anymore, the only good news is the suicide bombing is stopped. Hopefully I'm right about that. I mean, that's only a guess. So 12, and a host was given him. Now that host was given him, the bad guy, a great army. Who can war against the beast? Nobody, because it's the whole world are given to the beast. The United Nations are now supreme being. Okay, that's another sign, by the way. I'll get to that. United Nations is really strengthened at this point, and it's going to come up. It doesn't take long for this to happen. It doesn't take long. So a host was given him against the daily by reason of transgression. Now, the transgression is, you can describe the people that are living them as transgressors. Transgressors against truth, and that's what it says right here. It cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced, and it prospered. 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spoke, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily blank and the transgression of desolation? Desolation, here it is again. To give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. That host is us. So it's hard to distinguish sometimes, but that host is us. We are part of the sanctuary, and we will be trodden underfoot. It says that he wars against us, and he will prevail. He beats us. We lose. He has his way with us. Sorry, that's how it is. We're going to be tested during this time. But it's not like we can't win. We can win. We are able to win. We have to stand. Above all, we stand. Okay, 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay, now that's a different time here. It's not 1,260 days. That's now saying 2,300 days. And that's the amount of time, as I see it, from the beginning of opening the first seal to the sound of the last trumpet. And that's when Jesus comes back, and the sanctuary is totally cleansed with all that's going on. We, as a bride, are all nice and clean for our bridegroom to come and get us and take us away. And he loves us, and we love him. And this is going to be the good part. Right when the sanctuary is cleansed and she's ready to be wedded to her mate, or Yehoshua HaMashiach. Okay, Revelation 11 it mirrors this. And there was given to me a reed like unto a rod, a measuring rod. And the angel stood saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship him. See, them that worship therein. So that's us again. And he's measuring the holy people that have good hearts right now, and that have good faith, and that are his, that he treasures, and we treasure him. He's taken the many are picked, but few are chosen. He's measuring the chosen right here. Okay, 11:2. But the court that is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles. So there's the holy part of the temple, and there's the part that the outer court that a Gentile is allowed to walk on. They're not allowed to come into the temple, but they're allowed to go on that outer court. And really, what he means here is the uncircumcised, and really what he means is the uncircumcised in heart, because we have a circumcised heart now. We're not circumcised of the flesh; we're circumcised of the heart, and he gives his laws within our heart, and he speaks within our heart, right to it. We don't have. It's where he leads us and teaches us and guides us and strengthens us, right in our heart. We don't have to read the words and go to the mind, or put it in the ear first from somebody else saying it, and then put it in the mind, and then put it in the heart. Now, we don't have to do it. He does it directly. And then that ends with, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Okay, so that's the first half of the last 7 years. Again, Daniel 11:31, and arms shall stand on his bad guy's part. Sees arms as army on his bad guy part. And they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily, and they shall place the abomination that makes desolate. And they're going to do that, I think, after the first half. It's actually going to be the image of the beast. All right? So in the first 42 months, the beast rules and does all the treading against us and warring against us and everything. Then he magnifies in the I think it's the very middle when he magnifies. It's 1,290 days. It's that after the extra month, and that month, the two witnesses will be killed, and their bodies will stay, and it says for 3.5 days, and then they get raised up. Again, he mentions the abomination that makes desolate. Okay, and from the time that the daily blank shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate, there shall be 1,290 days. So there it is. And that is exactly that 290 days is exactly half of 7 years. So there's another half that's coming, but it's described as time, times, and dividing of times, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it, and that's the reason. The reason for that is it's really, I mean, time is no longer after the time as we know it is no longer after the seventh trumpet is blown. Okay, now let's take a look at who I think Antichrist the man is going to be. I'm thinking that he's going to be Prince Charles. And he is going to fill the role of being the mouthpiece to the United Nations, because I think the United Nations is going to be the beast that's described with 7 heads and 10 horns, and that rules over all kindreds and nations and tongues. Because I believe we're right on the cusp of the last 7 years, there has to be some entity out there that fills that role. And the Security Council of the United Nations at this moment in time has 5 permanent members. But it's going to need 2 more permanent members to be a 7-head, 10-horn beast. Now, the 10 horns at this moment in time is the 10 non-permanent members of the Security Council. They change every 2 years. The permanent are always going to be, the non-permanent change every 2 years. There's another theory I have about the tail, and I'll get to that later on. But right now, I just want to focus on the man himself and why I think it's going to be him. Now, the first thing is Charles translates as man. The mark of the beast is going to be have the number of a man. Just because his name is Charles and Charles means man, I think that fits the score there. I didn't work out any kind of number that he has in his name or anything like that. I didn't do that. As far as the number 666 goes, I think that has to do with loving man as made in the 6th day as compared to the rest and peace and love of God that goes with the 7th day. So a man of God that looks towards the rest day that God has for us, he is got a number as 777 rather than the guy who likes this world and it's 666. So that's my take on that. The coat of arms that is attached to Prince Charles, and it's got a lot of symbolism. Emblazoned in there is the flag of Wales with a red dragon. At his coronation of the Prince of Wales in 1969, he sat on a chair with a large red dragon emblazoned on it. And during the ceremony, his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, said, "This dragon gives you your power." So the dragon gave the beast his seat and his great authority and his power. Okay, the red dragon in Revelation gave the beast his power. And he also gives you your throne and your own authority. His response to her was, "I am now your league man and worthy of your earthly worship." They worshiped the dragon, and they worshiped the beast, and they worshiped the image of the beast. A statue of Prince Charles, or the image of the beast could be a clone from, in other words, if Prince Charles died, they have another guy pop up. Could be a hologram. So a clone, a video. The false prophet gave life to the image of the beast. So another reason why I'm looking at he's coming into focus with me is he was born in 1948, which is significant because that's the same year that the fig tree became a nation and they're both of the same generation. And don't forget, like the parable of the fig tree. He's saying, look at the branch when it's tender. He puts forth leaves. You know summer is nigh. Matthew 24:32-34. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. So likewise, ye, when you shall see these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And the most we got for a generation is 80 years. So if in 2021, the 73-year-old will only have 7 years left before he's 80, and he's got to hurry up and open that seal. And that has to be done in heaven, and nobody knows when it's going to be opened. But you can, like this video is saying to you, you can see when it will be opened by certain signs. And I'm saying one of the signs, somebody like Prince Charles. Now Prince Charles it doesn't seem to be a wicked man, but Antichrist, the man, is going to be son of perdition. And the only other one in Scripture for the son of perdition was Judas. And don't forget, Judas was an old familiar friend of Jesus who lifted up his heel against him. Nobody would think. The disciples, the other disciples, really didn't like him. They felt that he was in love for the money and all kinds of things like that. You wouldn't think that he was devil. You wouldn't have thought that. And it's the same thing. I mean, they're going to be deceived. He's going to be deceiving everybody. Everybody's going to think he's great, and they're going to think he's the hero of the world, and that he is going to be a peacemaker, and everything's going to be good in his hands. That's the great deception that's going to come over the unbelievers, the apostasy, what we talked about. Okay, so anyway, the first seal has to do with the white horse and the rider. That's in Revelation 6, verse 2. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given to him. Prince Charles is going to be crowned king of Great Britain. That's just another way of looking at it. I mean, there might be some other crown that he gets, but he went forth conquering and to conquer. So that's the first thing he's going to be doing. He's going to be starting to conquer the world and the whole world. That's the first seal, has to do with that, just as it says there. Now he has a white horse. Now in Revelation 19, another rider comes on a white horse. 19:11, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness does he judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. So you see, they both come riding on a white horse. They're both trying to. They're not. One doesn't have to try. One is the Messiah, the true Messiah, and the other one is a false Messiah. And Jesus, the true Messiah, warned us of being deceived by this false Messiah. Okay? That's one of the first things he said when they asked for a sign of the end times. So also on the coat of arms for Prince Charles, he has a unicorn, a white horse. All right? So there's the white horse again. So he may be the future mouthpiece of the beast, and he has the mouth of a lion. England has the symbol of the lion on its emblem, and you also have a lion on the coat of arms. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many things can point to Prince Charles. And again, he's either going to puppet somebody to say what they say, or he's going to be actually the man, the Security Council Secretary of the United Nations. All right? Okay. Another thing to look out for will be a significant change in the United Nations. Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads a name of blasphemy. And skip down to verse 7. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. It was given unto this beast that rises up to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Okay, so the only entity that exists out there at this time is the United Nations. And the United Nations almost fits exactly, but it doesn't fit exactly. When I say that, it has 7 heads. The United Nations, to me, as I interpret it, has 5 heads. The Security Council has 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. The 10 non-permanent members could represent the horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and that part I'm going to talk about a little later, because I have my thoughts about that, how that's going to change too. The United Nations right now has 10 non-permanent members. So it still fits their horns. It's just that you don't see 10 crowns. You see 10 horns. You could say you see 10 horns, but you really don't see 10 crowns. So that's going to change as well. And it may change in the beginning of the first seal, or it may change later. I don't know. But I'm going to talk about that a little later. But right now, I want to talk about why I think very strongly that is the United Nations Security Council, at least representing the 7 heads. And right now they only have 5 permanent members, so 2 more have to be added. And then also describing this beast is that it was given unto him to make war with the saints, overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So right there, that phrase, over all kindreds and tongues and nations. The only one I see out there as an entity that could fit this bill would be the United Nations, because they're over all the world. They could possibly have power very soon over all the world. All right? And that's what I'm pointing at. That's why it's so obvious to me that it's the United Nations. Let's go over to that little phrase there where it says that each of the 7 heads has a name of blasphemy. The first, we'll go to the first 5 that are already there. And before I do that, let's first define what does it mean by a name of blasphemy. When Jesus asked them, "Why do you stone me?" they replied, "We're stoning you because you are committing blasphemy in saying that you are equal to God." So being equal to God is at least one definition of a blasphemy. Looking at the flags and the countries, first the 5 that are already in the Security Council as permanent members are on the top, and the last 2 that I think are coming in are on the bottom. All right? So let's start with France. Okay, the name we're looking for right now, names of blasphemy on these five nations. All right, names of blasphemy on these five nations. The name France basically means freedom. They, in other words, they're describing themselves as a country of freedom. Now, when you read the Bible, who is it that gives you freedom? And the best verse that you got is, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And he also said, "I am the truth, the way, and the life." So it's France is not going to give you freedom the way God is going to give you freedom, and God is giving you freedom. So you are saying you give people freedom, and so you are making yourself equal to God. Now all of these are going to be just like that. Okay, another one is the United Kingdom. United Kingdom. Okay, now God is what? He's the United Kings. He's the United Father, who is King. He's the United Son, who is King, and He is United Holy Spirit. All of those are connected together, united as kings. All right, so that's a blasphemy name, as they're saying. We are the United Kings. All right, let's go to America. America means, and that's from an Italian name of the map maker, Americi. And that name means Heimrich in German, and in English it means home ruler. So that's blasphemy in the sense that the man is the head of the house, who is the head of the woman, who is the head of the child. And that is the home rule hierarchy. But the head of the man is Jesus himself, God himself. God is the home ruler. According to the Book of Books, God is the home ruler. So it's blasphemy to say that America is the home ruler. And believe me, I live in America, and they got a lot to say about how you rule your house. Then you see Russia is another one, and that Russia is from the Hebrew word Rosh, and that means head. So Rosh is head of the household. It's similar to America. Rosh is head of the church. Rosh is head. So that's blasphemy. He's trying to sit in God's seat there, right there, and become the head of the church and the head of the family. Okay? So there's another blasphemy. Now, as far as the interpretation of what the name Russia means, it's disputed. Okay, then the fifth and final Permanent Security Council member is China, and their name translated in Chinese means the center of the land. And the way that becomes a blasphemy is Israel is the center of the land when God is dwelling in Jerusalem in the temple. When that's happening, all the nations are going to be flowing to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is right at that point. I mean, Jerusalem held that status, doesn't hold it right now because God is not dwelling there, but He will dwell there according to prophecy, and Jerusalem is the center in the sense that nations come to it to visit God. Nations are not going to come to China to visit God. So China is trying to say that their leader is God, and he's not. Okay, let's go over to the two that I believe are going to be added. Now, this is the sign, by the way, that these two countries have to be added in to the permanent members of the Security Council. Because if they don't, it's not the beginning yet. Because the beast is described, the beast that rules for 42 months, is described as a seven-headed beast with names of blasphemy. Now, these two guys have names of blasphemy as well, but right now they're not included. They have to become included, and that's why I'm telling you this is a major sign that the first seal has been opened, because these two countries have been added. And the blasphemy name of Germany was used by Hitler, calling his country the fatherland. All right? And he said, call no man your father, for you have one father. That the title of father has been blasphemed many, many times. But this is another one. Okay. Now, how about Japan? I believe Japan is also going to be added. The name for the country Japan has been in history known as the land of the rising sun. And there's two flags, actually. One is the flag for the rising sun. And all that one does is just add the sunbeams. The other one's without the sunbeams for the flag of Japan. But I wanted to emphasize the rising sun name of Japan. The blasphemy part of that is Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Japan is saying, I am the light of the world. I'm the sun. I'm the light of the world. So blasphemy. That anything that where you try to say you are just the same or better than God, it's going to be blasphemy. So all of the seven have the names of blasphemy, so it fits that, and it also fits that they will rule over all nations, kindreds, and tongues. All right, so now I'm going to go back to why I go back to that argument about the name Russia means head, and basically the reason it's a disputed reason, but the best place to go is the Septuagint, which was written a little before Jesus, translating the Hebrew into Greek. And when they transliterated the names of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal, they just transliterated them from Hebrew to Greek. So, in other words, Meshach and Tubal are names. They transliterated them. Rosh was also transliterated. So they weren't giving them definitions of what Rosh means in Hebrew, in Greek. They weren't doing that. They weren't saying, okay, we see Rosh, and what Rosh means in Hebrew is head, or chief. So they translated it like that, but they really didn't. The going from Hebrew to English, they did, but they didn't do it from Hebrew to Greek. All right, and those was Septuagint means there were 70 scholars translating it, and there wasn't any New Testament either. I mean, the King James Version had lots of scholars on it, but they didn't beat out the Septuagint, really. They really didn't. And the Septuagint had it right. And besides that, the order of the word prince and the word chief were swapped. They were swapped in the King James version. They were swapped. In the Hebrew, it wasn't swapped, and in the Septuagint, it wasn't swapped. Only in the translation in the King James version. So, as much as I like the King James version, and I think it's the best translation you can trust, they got it wrong there. They also got it wrong in a couple other places, but that's not that's not the topic of this video. But what is the topic is we need to look for signs, and if Germany comes in, it would be a big sign. It helps perfectly match the description of the seven heads, in that one of the heads had a deadly wound by the sword and did live. And Germany fits that description very much. Okay, now let's talk about the 10 horns of the beast. And the 10 horns each have a crown. That's the part that I want to address, because the 10 non-permanent members are probably going to be replaced by the 10 kings that the earth is divided into. And this has been in the works, and there are different versions of the map, but you can see that that it is a planned thing, the earth to be divided into 10 regions, and each region is eventually going to have a king, and they probably will have a king at the time that they are installed into the United Nations, as taking the place of the 10 non-permanent members. That's what I see to happen, and I expect it to happen before the first seal is opened. So this is going to be a very big, outstanding event that you are going to be able to see and notice, and that's going to be a very major one. The dragon, the red dragon, he's also described as having 10 horns with crowns upon each horn. Again, I believe that they are the same 10 horns that are installed in the United Nations. So the beast and the dragon both share the same 10 horns. And the dragon has been without horns up until this point. And he has them, and he shares them with the beast, because the beast has them as well. All right? So, and the 10 toes in Daniel's statue, the last empire represented by the feet with 10 toes. Those 10 toes are likely represented by these 10 divided pieces of the earth. Okay, so again, it's a very big thing that's going to happen. So you can't miss it. Okay, another end time event may or may not be seen in the very beginning. Former President Barack Obama is prophesied by Nathan. He's going to be Gog, G-O-G, Gog of the land of Magog. I think the United States is the land of Magog for the American Indians. That's my take on that, but that would make him Gog of the land of Magog. I believe also he's going to be the king of the South, wars against the king of the North, which is the United Nations. Mecca is directly south of Jerusalem. So that's where I'm getting my thoughts about who's going to be Gog in the Battle of Armageddon. There are 7 vials. After the sound of the last trumpet, there's the 7 vials. Gog and Magog are described in 6th vial. But there is a very terrible battle in the sixth trumpet, and but that's still close to the end of the 7 years. But it's very possible that he shows up because he is going to be an end time event, and he shows up in the beginning. He may show up then. Sign that you will surely be able to see, will be the two witnesses, and they will be giving testimony for 42 months, 1,260 days. They're both the same. They're going to be killed after that time during the 43rd month, and it says that they are both killed and they are left unburied for 3.5 days. Now that 3.5 days, by the way, can be considered to be times dividing the times, which would put him towards the end, unburied towards the end, and after that they are both seen by all to go up into heaven. And this is right before Jesus is coming back, because the last trump is right after the sixth trump. All right? So that's something you got to see, because there are going to be two witnesses. What they are going to do is they are going to bear witness to salvation of Jesus Christ, our Messiah. Okay, they're going to bear witness where if you had any desire to love God, you would listen to them and hear them, and you would turn and you would repent. And that's what they're going to be doing. Ron Wyatt, Lord helped him find where the ark, Noah's ark, was. The Lord helped him know where the children crossed Red Sea, where that site was. He helped tell where Mount Sinai is still. And he gave proof. So this is all on his website. The main one that the Lord helped him find is the Ark of the Covenant. And there were when he was down there. And by the way, it was right under Mount Golgotha. That was where he found it. And there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake that caused a crack, and his blood and mixed with water went down the crack of the earthquake caused, and it went right onto the mercy seat. And the angels that were down there instructed him to take the blood, the dried blood, because he saw dried blood, both on the ceiling and on the mercy seat itself, and it was on the western side, by the way, of the mercy seat. They instructed him to take the blood sample and go to an Israeli lab and have it examined, and they found one male chromosome and 22 female, so that would absolutely fit. And they were surprised that it was still that it would revived, and it gave them all that information. So this was a miracle. This was something this is a witness to the world. You don't believe it? You didn't see it? Okay, it's like you're like Thomas. Okay, now here's the proof. And besides that, he's going to have the two tables of testimony, the two Ten Commandments tablets that Moses received on the mountain the second time. And of course, they were in the ark. That's all. I just wanted you guys to know that you're going to recognize those two witnesses. They're going to be very unique. They're going to have, if they're not Moses and Elijah reincarnated, they will be men that have the spirit of Elijah, similar to John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. Let's do it all over again. And that's about it. It is very soon, by the way, people. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. We'll win. God will never forsake us. He will never leave us nor forsake us, even to the end of the world.